All right, well, hello everybody. Coming to you from my post-apocalyptic bunker. Just kidding, it's the van. So, I have some interesting observations. So as you guys can see, I've pretty much completed the demo here. Oh, I've got a lot of little cleaning up to do, but all the big stuff is out. So I tore out all of the walls, insulation, ceiling, and down here on the deck or the floor. And some good news and kind of some interesting observations on construction of these Class Bs. So just to catch you guys up, if you just stumbled across this or if you don't remember, this is my van build, which started its life as a factory converted Class B RV. So it's on a Ford E250 chassis, sent to a company called Horizon, who converted it to a Class B RV. I don't think Horizon exists anymore, or at least not by that name. That's my understanding. All right. So the good is no rust issues. I know that kind of looks like rust there on the wall, but that's actually, I believe, like an adhesive residue. I looked down into all these little crevices down there the best I can, and no rust, or certainly nothing of significance. So that's a great news. I mean, the inside of the walls, again, outside of having the little fuzzies from the fiberglass insulation, are in pretty good shape from what I can tell. The high top is obviously fiberglass, and to the best I can tell, again, I know it's messy and it's got shit hanging from it, etc., but from the best I could tell, that is all intact. First interesting observation is that there was zero insulation in the roof. So we've got, this is a fiberglass roof. They obviously, when they made it, formed in, these are probably some kind of a wood or plywood in there. And then it had these particle board arches here. My assumption is that was put in by the company who converted this RV. And basically all they had was just, it was like an eighth of an inch thick. It was kind of like a pressed cardboard board, I guess you would say. And it had a thin layer of foam and then kind of a vinyl covering on it. And all of these gaps, all these little spaces and everything in here, zero insulation. You could see they must have used some kind of adhesive where they put the insulation in other locations, so you could certainly see the differences, but there was zero insulation in here, which I don't know. I mean, it seems odd because the board would sit right here, so at a minimum you'd have this valley gap, and then this looks like about a half-inch thick piece of OSB there. So enough space to at least put a little bit of minimal insulation, but they put nothing in there. I don't know if any of you guys could chime in and tell me if that's normal. I mean, it just kind of strikes me as a little bit odd to put no insulation in the ceiling here at all. All right, the floor. So the floor just had half-inch OSB that was screwed down. Maybe a little bit of adhesive here and there, but almost just kind of sitting on it. Fortunately, the floor is in pretty good shape, all things considered. No rust, even a little bit of paint wear, but not even really much. Again, no insulation, just OSB straight on the floor. That doesn't necessarily surprise me as much, but the ceiling does. At least, maybe I'm just naive. I don't know. I just feels like they would at least have a little bit. The side walls, even up here, they did have some fiberglass insulation. I'm a little embarrassed to say I don't know how you rate that, but it was, when it was puffed out, it looked about like 2 inches thick. I don't know if that's standard or if they rate it like that, but it did have some fiberglass insulation. And then the main lower walls, same thing, some fiberglass insulation that was set in there. The entire walls, both in the high top area and below here, were kind of a two-part system. It was a piece of plywood that was about a 1/4 inch thick that was just kind of cut to shape and wedged in there, screwed in at a few spots, but it was mostly just kind of wedged in there. And then on top of that, they had that same kind of pressed fiberboard, I don't know, 1/8, 3/16 thick, something like that. And it had kind of like a, if you see that back door, that kind of like that, I don't even know what that is, like a vinyl covering or something. It had that, and that was just kind of, again, just kind of wedged in place. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's normal. I mean, me looking back now, it was a lot of work, but I'm actually very grateful that I decided to go ahead and strip this bad boy all the way down. I think I'm going to have, I'll do a much better job. I'm going to, I bought some insulation. I've never used this before. It's called Thinsulate. It seems to be pretty commonly used in the van world, so I will use that. And I don't want to get too much into it here, but I will, all of these walls, including likely the ceiling here, will all be sheathed in cedar. That's sometime. That'll be a long ways down the road there. Another observation, which I feel pretty confident is not how it's supposed to be, was this high top. So I started taking all this stuff apart here, and I don't know, does that look right? What I've noticed in a few spots here is that the screws that they use, they're a self-tapping sheet metal style screw, I guess you would say, were not long enough. And you can see like that one right there didn't even reach the metal of the van. Fortunately, no signs of any water leakage up in there. But there was some spots over here on the side and all around. And I also noticed all those screws are kind of rusted out. So I'm going to start the slow and tedious process here of pulling all the screws out one by one. I'm not going to pull them all out and then reinsert them because I don't want this thing to shift or anything weird to happen. But I'll just kind of pull them out and start exchanging those. And while I have everything cleared out right here, I bought some larger or longer screws, and I'll make sure that everything's screwed down nice and tight. No adhesive either. Again, I'm not sure if that's standard or not, but it basically is just, there was no, basically in the gap between the high top and the metal frame of the van, there was no adhesive, no caulking, nothing. It was just like they took the high top, sat it on there, and put screws around it. I don't know, maybe that's the norm. Maybe they don't use adhesive or anything on purpose. I would love if some of you guys knew one way or the other, or if maybe you've taken apart your van, and if you have any comments on that. I could have swore I've heard other places where people had put some kind of adhesive. So I mean, it's an interesting observation and quality. There was some other weird things, like, so this piece, which I don't know what you call it, but we've all seen it. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like a dual layer structural component. You could see where they had cut it, like right up in here. I'm not even really sure why they cut it there. I guess probably to fit the furnace. I'm not sure. But it just seems weird to me that they just kind of left it flopping there. I don't know. Maybe there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not sure. Another weird thing is, like, see those holes right there? There's kind of the hollow cavity. Nothing was in there. No insulation. It just seems like that would be a very natural spot, especially with like a fiberglass insulation, just to shove a little bit down in there. Maybe not. I don't know. But the pros are no rust, no. I know to a lot of you guys this looks like a complete shit show in here, and it does, but I can kind of look beyond it, and everything's going to be okay. No rust that needs to be fixed. Everything will be fine. I am grateful that I was originally going to just kind of leave the walls up and kind of work around them, but in retrospect, I'm grateful that I actually took them off, and we'll make this thing nice and neat. Oh, and there was a couple other like little strange things, like right here in this little cavity here. This would have been above the three-way fridge. They just didn't have any insulation at all. They had, well, I guess there was a little bit, but it was just kind of like hanging there and drooping. Like there was a lot of spots like that where it just kind of really seemed like someone just kind of came in and slapped it in place, and there was a lot of little gaps and openings, and I don't know. I mean, maybe that's just how they make them. I don't know. It just kind of disappointed me a little bit, but I am grateful that it doesn't appear that there is any substantive damage, so it's going to be a nice slate for me to work with. But yeah, so we're coming slow but sure. A lot of my focus last couple days have been kind of revamping the propane system here. I changed a few things up. So the propane tank sits on this side, and there was a propane line that came here to the three-way fridge. Obviously, I've taken that out because that's not necessary. And then we've got 3 propane things there: the water heater, the furnace, and then over here there was a propane line that went to the stove. They did something really weird, and again, I don't have a great explanation for it. So, okay, so the propane tank would sit underneath this area, underneath the cab, and then it goes into a junction box, and they have and this is underneath the van here. They have a propane line that goes underneath the van, and it pops up right there out of the floor, okay? And then that line fed the furnace, and then as you guys can see here, I talked about this in the video, I did a T here, and that's a rubber line that's going to go here, and that will lead to the water heater I'm using, but there was a copper line that led to the water heater that was there. Okay, so that seems fine. But then back underneath the van, there's a little junction box where a rubber line comes out of the propane tank. And then there was another line that just went directly into the van, and then it popped up, where did it pop up at? Roughly kind of down in this area, okay? And it was a copper line, and that's what fed the stove. Well, what I didn't like was that copper line actually from underneath the van went underneath, or just directly underneath the fuel tank, and then popped back up. I don't know. I didn't like that at all, because I mean it's just kind of exposed to the bottom there, and it just looked really, just like a really shoddy job. So what I did is I eliminated the fuel line that was here for the three-way fridge, and I eliminated the one that came up here, and the one that is routed to here was a pretty clean routing. They actually even had a little bit of conduit around it and everything. And then I just teed off a piece that came over, which will come to the stove, and this rubber line will complete it. And then it teed off, goes to the furnace, or what will be the furnace, and then there's another rubber line that will go to the Instant Hot over here. And if you guys recall, I wanted the rubber line, that way when I pull the Instant Hot in and out, it gives me a little bit of flexibility, and I'll set up the water lines. And yeah, guys, that's rambled on enough here, but just let me know if you guys think that's just the norm, or if this build was a pretty low quality build, or I don't know, just kind of your general observations. But all right, guys, we'll catch up to you.